Ladies and gentlemen, among the most critical moments in our lives as human beings is that of choosing a life partner, and especially amongst believers. It is often not easy to identify who specifically is meant for me, or who am I supposed to end up as my life partner. The phrase, the one, is quite common in the Christian sphere, where we have people who tend to believe that there is that particular person who was meant for me and God designed them to be my life partner. Others have different thoughts all around this matter, and the debates have been all over. I am sure you've come across them so often. And today we are here to delve a bit into that topic and just share our thoughts on the one. Welcome to the Liz&Peps Inspiration Center. This is a Liz&Peps production, and my name is Pepela Collins. And as always, I'm here with my beautiful wife, Elizabeth. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi. I hardly get called Elizabeth. That when at times you call me Elizabeth, I'm just like, ooh,
weird,
am I
right?
the one? Yeah, it sounds
Are you the
weird. Yeah, Liz, yes. But anyway,
I
I'm still
actually does
Elizabeth.
feel
Yeah.
it, yeah. So I'm sure you're very excited about this topic, and
Yes,
I
I
know that it's
am.
something you've talked about so often.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm definitely excited about this topic. And I'm also excited to actually get to hear people's thoughts on this. And we definitely cannot talk about the one without using the most common phrase that is used by our Christian brethren when they are pursuing relationships. And this statement is, can you guess? Can you guess? You guessed it right. The Lord told me. The Lord spoke to me. Yes.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. I think, as you mentioned, and as I did mention earlier, it's a very wide and common debate among believers, young people especially, because they are the ones often caught up in that stage of trying to find a life partner. When it comes to marriage, and there's so many teachings around that, and yeah, it comes to a point where a brother wants to find a lady that they are going to, and as believers, we always believe in the leading of the Lord, right?
Yes.
And we believe that God has to do with everything that we do, and is a part of the choices that we make. It has to do with God, and be our faith, our Christianity being founded on faith.
Yeah.
We always do believe that God has to lead us into whatever. Yeah, just like many other things that we do believe God leads us, marriage is not excluded from them.
Definitely.
And therefore, we also want to believe that God definitely has a part to play in as far as choosing the life partner is concerned, which we tend to agree. Most of us do agree about this. But the problem comes where, how exactly do you identify and quantify and justify this leading of God in as far as choosing that life partner is concerned? And the other wider debate, something she did mention, is there such thing as the one, somebody who was created and set apart for you, and they are not meant for somebody else or anyone else apart from you?
I definitely agree that we as Christians, we always depend on God's leadings. And especially in such an important decision which has to do with our lives, then it is expected of us that we will actually depend on Christ to lead us through that journey in making that decision. But I think it is also a matter of how exactly do we portray it then to this other person, to this other sister who the men are, for instance, approaching. Because we need to also accept the fact that we are also human beings. So at times I feel like people over spiritualize some things.
Okay.
I may be wrong, because for instance, I'd imagine, yes, the Lord has spoken to the brethren, but has the Lord spoken to the lady as well? Yeah. So what happens if the Lord has not spoken to the sister?
Okay.
Or the man approaches the lady and the lady says, but I've not heard of from the Lord yet. So then what happens? And so it's also about how really you approach this sister.
So before we go deeper into our thoughts as regards the leading of the Lord and all that, I would be curious to know your stand on this common, the one, the idea of the one. What's your take on it? Do you believe we have the one? Ideally, which means God created somebody for me, and that is the person I'm supposed to end up with as my life partner, and there is no possibility of me going to marry somebody else. In what case, if I did, it would mean walking out of the will of God. What's your take on that?
I feel like there is no the one. For me, there is no the one.
Okay.
And even when I was in that space where I was mature enough and I knew that, yes, it is the right time to probably get into this relationship that should be leading to marriage, or that I'll be trusting God to lead to marriage. I did not really have the one per se, that it was it was sort of a do or die if I don't get this person. For me, it was more of a function. So, and it depends really. I think it will probably go back to where we will probably go to again about the common phrase that is used when pursuing sisters. But for me, it was more of a functional role for the person who I was going to settle down with. And for me, what Christ had been putting in my heart always was the story of Genesis, where we see Rebecca and taking of the camel to take water, And I think there's a phrase there which says, and the woman who will do this, like giving the water to the camel and So for me, that is what the conviction that Christ had put in my heart during that season. And I knew that the person whom I would settle down with would come with the benefit of a function. And not necessarily one person.
I think it seems more complex and lots in it than just meets the eye when people talk about the one. We can make a reference to the scriptures and how people ended up getting their spouses in the biblical time. And even in our own time, we have the privilege of witnessing so many people go about their relationship life. We've witnessed people end up in marriage. We've witnessed breakups in marriage. We have witnessed even people losing their spouses and all that. And therefore, this just tells you that it's a more complex matter than just meets the eye. And that is not to mean that there is a blank in the scripture as does regard that, because later on in the show we will be talking about how the common phrase you say, the Lord spoke to me, which means as believers we do believe in the leading of the Lord, but just what our thoughts are around the leading of the Lord into finding a life partner and all that. But it is so difficult for you as a person to just stand out and say there is a specific person that is meant for me, and if I do not end up with that person, because that would actually allude to many mistakes that we do make in life. There are testimonies of people who have not been in multiple relationships, people who just found their first relationship was the relationship that led to marriage, and which is a beautiful story. There are not so many cases of such either. There are not so many cases of such. So that means the majority of the people you will hear give their testimony, they would, at least majority of them will talk about having been in several relationships. Some who have even gone to the extent of almost getting to marriage and planning a wedding and all that, and then things fell apart. And I don't know whether somebody would stand out and say that didn't happen because they were not with the one, or you see.
I feel like it's never such a tightrope, to be honest.
It is quite a complex matter.
Yeah,
it is quite a complex matter. But as a believer, you have to believe that yes, the Lord does lead people. So I would wonder, you as a believer, what is your position? What is it that you are supposed to do as you are looking for that life partner? What is your role in ensuring that whatsoever choice you are going to make, you will be confident that the Lord has something to do with it and it is the right decision?
I think it varies from person to person. And so Christ speaks to different people differently. That's what I believe.
Okay.
But one thing that I know for sure is that if Christ speaks, you will be able to identify that it is Christ for sure. And even we've seen it in the story of Paul, really, when he was going to persecute Christians and he had the voice.
Yes.
And he did not really see Christ, but he was able to actually tell that it was Christ who was speaking to him, and telling him not to go and persecute the Christians. But I think it is also asking yourself how Christ has been speaking to you in these other occasions as well. So, for instance, if Christ had been talking to me in these previous occasions through having a peace of mind, then I would identify that I would probably know that this is him speaking when a brother approaches me and I have that peace of mind. Or if it has been through the trumpet at night in my dreams, then that will be a normal thing. It could be that Christ has always spoken to you through probably counseling from an elderly person or a spiritual leader. So maybe a leader sees you and they tell you, brother, you've been roaming around this sister. But you're not approaching them, and this sister is good, they've been serving the Lord, and maybe it now opens your eyes. And that has happened to you previously in other things like that. Christ has sort of used this person sort of as a pathway for you to walk through. Then that would make sense.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's quite precise, and I would really agree, because we would agree as believers we are led by the Lord. I think I would repeat this severally because it is the foundation of our Christianity, in that we give our lives to God, and therefore everything about us springs from our relationship with God. And I do agree God does speak to people, and God hears the prayer of his people, and it is God's will for us that we get what is best for us in as far as serving the kingdom purpose is concerned. And that includes getting our life partner. Because that is one very critical stage in somebody's life. Actually, you would find that for majority of us, the life you're going to potentially live together with your partner is far much greater than what you have lived before. Those are so many more years. And even the assignments that you ought to accomplish within that life with your partner is way, way much more than you had ever accomplished while you are living as a single person. Therefore, we would find that marriage is a very serious thing, and it should concern God. And for a child of God, it should be something that does matter to them as well. And therefore, God would not want to be excluded from such an important step in a believer's life, especially a child of God who has been marked for God's purpose and is supposed to serve a divine purpose. God surely must be interested in what transpires in their lives, who is coming into their lives. Because this could be another teaching, but the effect of a spouse in your life. They could have a bearing as to the direction that you go, as to how you will be able to serve the purpose of God, and as to how the rest of your life actually does manifest. And God does speak to people. The instance that you did mention about Rebecca and Isaac, this scripture, of course, this illustration has been given, and just as many other illustrations, they have been given in the scriptures not to tell us that is the only way God does speak, but they actually remind us of the fact that, one, God does speak. But in the scriptures, you will also realize that God did speak in very many different ways. He does not have just one particular way of. That is why we are always warned against picking out an occurrence in the scripture and then making a doctrine out of it. For instance, what these records are there to do is to teach us an aspect about God and teach us how to trust in God, knowing that even in this matter, for instance, this was relating to marriage, God is actually concerned. So one of the biggest things we learn from the account of Rebecca is the fact that God is concerned about who their children get married to, or who comes into the lives of their children or his servants as their spouses. That is very similar to us as well. I believe God is really concerned about who we marry, who we end up with, because we've been marked for a divine purpose, and whoever comes to our lives should be able to complement that very purpose. Therefore, as you said, I totally agree, God does lead people. So what our role is as believers is you need to seek the face of God.
Yeah.
You need to seriously pray about it. How do you seek the face of God? You need to pray about it. One of the greatest avenues that we've been given us to seeking the will of God, because the Bible says, ask and it will be given unto you. God does give us an opportunity for us to go to him and pour out our hearts to him and ask for his divine guidance as well, just as many biblical figures did. And God led them. Therefore, our role as believers is we have to go to God and seek his will regarding who we are going to marry. Ask God to genuinely lead us and lead us to the right person that is meant for us.
I wonder whether you had the one for you. I wonder how it was for you. How did you identify the one for you?
You've just chosen to put me on the spot now.
No.
Okay, I would say, by the way, I've just mentioned about we seeking the will of God. Many people, as I said, God speaks to people in many ways, and there are some things that you mentioned that are very true somewhere previously about how God would speak to people. It could be, for example, through a peace of mind. I said, as Christians, Christianity is founded on faith in God. In most cases, we may not have the evidence, plain evidence before we believe. We need to believe before we see it. So one thing, after you have prayed to God and you have trusted God, then you have confidence that whatever you end up in, God has something to do with it. You could have, for example, seen a sister that you like. As a man, you've seen that sister you like. One is, you, first of all, you've been praying to God about leading you to the right person. And somehow you end up seeing this sister and you like her. That could be, you have every reason to believe that God is the one leading you, of course, to like that sister, because you did pray about it. Now you will go beyond the stage of just liking her and giving yourself time to do your observations and all that, until you come to the point of now officially asking her to marry you. You see, as you go all these steps, and God has, there's nothing that has happened, for example, to break it apart and all that, you'll still have confidence and say, the Lord is leading me, because I did pray for the Lord to lead me. So growing up, I didn't have the notion of the one, but I did believe God has a part to play in as far as me finding a life partner is concerned. And I did pray that Lord lead me, and therefore I trusted God that whatsoever path I took in life and where I am right now, I would say God has been a part of my journey, and I have every reason to believe that God led me to be with you.
And the leading really varies, to be honest, as you've mentioned, because for some people as well, I know of a sister who, for her, it was hearing the same message every single place. Like, it was getting into the car, hearing the same message, going to the church, hearing the same message as well. To the people she's talking about, it was the same message, and for her it was very clear that Christ was trying to actually communicate something to her. But just before we forget, the one, for me, other than being able to actually perform that function, other than it being a functional thing, it also had to be a mature person. Because I believe that maturity is very, very key in marriage. Even in the Bible, Paul in 1 Corinthians just tried to tell us that indeed marriages undergo lots of trouble. So if at all you cannot really believe people who have been married before, at least believe the Bible. It is not a bed of roses. Yes. And so it needs, and there are the reason why I'm also mentioning maturity is because there are things which will need to be settled from a human perspective, because we are dealing with human beings, isn't it? Even in this marriage. So the one needed to be someone who can take up responsibilities as well. Because I believe that, yes, there are things which, of course, we seek Christ in everything. But if, for instance, we are supposed to be paying the house rent, it is a need that needs to be catered for. We cannot really say that we will now turn to Christ and wait for him to bring us that. I don't know that it makes sense.
And so actually, I think the bigger debate shouldn't be about really the one, because one of the misunderstandings that people get into is just being there because they believe there is the one who was made for me. But there is something, actually, personally, I would tell you, if I were to believe in the one, this is how I would define the one. The one is that person that God will lead you to end up with if you have been seeking the will of God for you as a believer. So I would confidently say, the path I walked and I sought God's will, and at the end of the day, I get my life partner and we make the vows and end up in a marriage. I would say that is the one. That is who God led me to be with. The one is because, as I mentioned, many people have a history of have broken up relationships and all that. And every time they were getting into a relationship, I'm sure they were convicted. This is the person that I'm meant to marry, isn't it? And then somewhere along the way, things happened. Whether things just happened and they ended up not being together. And this would be in spite of the fact that this person has been praying all along. You'd have somebody who prayed, God led them to somebody, and they didn't end up getting married. You would be tempted to wonder, is it me who didn't hear the voice of God well? Or was it God who instigated this just to teach me something, for instance? Because the way of the Lord is beyond what we can understand in most cases. So you could be tempted to think, I am the one who didn't pray right, or I am the one who made the wrong decision and all that. But it is more complex than that. It could be God allowed that to teach you a lesson and allow you to go through a series of that just to learn something before you ended up in the maybe at some point your selfish desires crept in and you ended up making the wrong decision and you thought it is the Lord who had led you, and that is why God instigated a situation that would lead you people to be apart and all that. So I'll just define the one as that very person who God will eventually lead you to be with if you have been working together. Something somebody said that I do agree with as well is, instead of you getting worried about marrying the right person, you should work on making yourself the right person for marriage. I think that is one thing that does help, because what happens in this is, at least you, as you grow up, you get a clearer picture of what marriage is and what your duties are. You would say a child in high school, for instance, or at 14 years, they're just getting into adolescent. They're still children. They would maybe start feeling that attraction to opposite sex, know about relationship, but they are not ready for marriage yet. And even when you come to the expectations in terms of relationship, they feel like they have a longer period to get married and it's not within the picture yet. As this person grows and advances in age, they continue learning more, and the picture of what marriage is and what is expected of them in marriage becomes clearer to them, because clearly they are heading closer to that transition, which they know would be mostly inevitable for most of us, isn't it? When now they come to a point where they realize, now this is an age where I need to marry, they are even more keen on sitting under teachings and learning about the institution of marriage and what it entails and what is expected of them. Therefore, everyone has every opportunity to prepare themselves for marriage. So when somebody tells you prepare yourself or make yourself the right person, it's not like you do not know what to do. There are so many things, of course, you will not know. You will have, as people will tell you, marriage is another journey and another phase as well. As we get into it is when we get an opportunity to learn some things. But by the time you are getting into marriage, you have a basic understanding of what marriage is. So long before you get into that, you do have your expectations and all that. And therefore, we are always told, do not worry about getting the right person, at least as far as God is concerned. In fact, God does not allow us to worry. Biblically, God tells us to cast our worries unto him.
Yeah.
Therefore, we are not supposed to worry. We are supposed to trust in God.
Yeah.
And as we trust in God, we can comfortably start working on ourselves and making ourselves right for marriage, so that and we also trust that God will prepare the right person to come meet me, who is prepared to be the right person for marriage.
That's definitely very important, because again, the Christian life mainly emphasizes about you being the servant and not someone else coming in to be your servant. It's more of servanthood, isn't it? So that's definitely a very good point. It has been a very interesting conversation. And imagine going to a job interview. And when you get there before the panelists, you go ahead and tell them, the Lord has told me that this is my job and I am convicted that this is my job. So please do away with the questions, do away with everything, and just give me the contract to sign. It will never work out that way. And that's the same way as well. That's the same thing as well when we talk of the Lord told me. That is what comes to my mind. If you just come to me and tell me the Lord told me without, it's sort of bullying me to get into that relationship.
And you're right. I think one thing I realize about people who come say that is, in fact, when I come to you, when somebody says the Lord told me, they do expect that you do not object, because it is the Lord. So one thing with that statement, the problem with that statement is it becomes sort of manipulative.
Exactly.
To begin with, because it wants to fix me. When I say no, I'll be the kind of person who who am I to say it is the Lord?
Why are you rejecting the voice of the Lord?
Okay, yeah. So that means, actually, I think it is an unnecessary phrase in the first. But when I am approaching a lady as a man, I am already married. But it speaks for those who are out there and you're just trying to think of this. If the Lord has really spoken to you and convicted you, you do not need to go first of all, and your punchline, your pickup line with this lady is, the Lord has told me. What you will do is you will just, as usual, tell this lady about what you feel and your intentions and everything, and let her respond. If the lady is, because you believe she's a Christian as well and cares about the will of God, if she will want to ask you how you know that, and how you came to the decision that she is the one for you, then you can find a way now of which includes you saying, I have heard the voice of the Lord. You can justify that and all that, but it shouldn't be as a way of coercing or manipulating her or him into believing that I do not have an alternative. Because remember, a relationship with God is very personal. As much as I have a personal relationship with God, she does have a personal relationship with God as well. I am not the only one who hears the voice of God. She also has to hear the voice of God. And it has to agree. Therefore, she has a part to play as well. It is not just about me coming and saying the Lord has told me, and there's nothing she can do about it. So that's the debate, guys, and it's hot, and it is a conversation that you will hear so many times in the many ages to come. I don't think it is going to come to a stop. We would be very interested to know what your thoughts are on this matter. We've just shared a bit. We haven't had time to expound everything, because I do feel actually like there's so many things I would have taken, I would have spoken about, but that would take me a 3-hour sermon or that just to expound on them and all that. But we've just provided a platform for this conversation to begin, and we want to hear your thoughts on this matter. What do you think? Do you think there is the one? What are your thoughts on the one? What are your thoughts on the Lord's leading in as far as finding a marriage partner is concerned? You could feel free to share your testimony as well. How did you know that was the person meant for you? Are there any challenging moments you went through, or any unclear times you went through before finally finding the right person for you? Just feel free to share this video. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Let us interact. Ask any questions that you have. we will try our best to respond to the questions, and we count on the
Yeah.
many other viewers who are out there and to respond as well, because we are a big body of believers, isn't it?
Yes, we
Yeah.
are. So thank you guys for watching. Please remember to subscribe, to like, share, and comment, and see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye.
Bye bye.